That's now useless because they put their trust in NASA.
See that? Do you guys see that right there?
It's the only thing within the bloody agency that's on time and on budget, and they want to cancel it.
Tomorrow begins right now.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tomorrow. We have a great show in store for you today. We've had a bit of a break for the past couple of weeks, so very happy to be back. And we've been able to have Jamie join us today, but I believe that she's going to, poor Jamie is a little bit sick, so we're going to not try to stress her voice out any more than we have to. We also have Jared with us, and of course, Ryan Caton. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. There have been so many updates over the past couple of weeks, and probably the biggest thing that we wanted to start off talking about is the White House proposal for the fiscal year 2026 budget. We've known for a little while now, we've had quite a few rumors about the science budget getting cut is up to 50%, but now the proposed budget for the rest of the agency has come out, and it does not look good. It's essentially a cut to every single part of the agency, except for a little bit of a boost for the human spaceflight program. But when you add it all out, it just kind of looks like a cut to everything. So, yeah, we need to talk about this stuff and kind of figure out where our path is going to go from here, at least in terms of NASA. So,
Mike, I actually have been under the weather, as you can hear from my voice. So I have not been following this. The last I heard, it was like a $6 billion cut to sciences, right? And that was all rumors. So, and you mentioned, cuts to everything else. Do we have a little more detail as to like what the proposal is?
Indeed,
and how real is this proposal?
This is, from my understanding, this is the official proposal from the White House, and of course, this would all still need to be voted on, and Congress, I'm sure, will have a little bit of pushback. But this is what the official recommendation is now, and what it looks like is that we have what they have proposed is that for the human spaceflight program, it's getting a little bit of a boost of about $647 million. And they want that to go towards the lunar exploration and new investments towards a Mars-focused program. But for the space science, they are getting a cut of $2.2 billion, which is in line with the administration's objectives to return to the moon before China, and also to cancel the Mars sample return mission in its present form. And it seems to me like they would rather have humans go and grab those samples than do something else like Rocket Lab doing their cheaper version of the Mars sample
Did
return.
they put this in there just so that Jared and I could have a debate to the death? Is that what did they?
I think so.
Are you ready, Jared?
They heard.
Are you ready?
They heard. Yeah, let's
they
go
heard
for
us
it.
talking about it. Let's go.
Yes, let's go for it.
They're getting
did you
a
turn
1.
the wrong way? Were you trying to turn
I sure
to me?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
I'm
lost. I don't know where I am anymore, but I'm here.
All right. I'll say I'm not completely. Look, if we're sending humans to Mars, then why do we need a Mars sample return mission? Send the humans there. I know, Jared. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll put that in the After Dark show. We'll continue.
Yeah,
that
let's
debate.
have our like 54th debate about that in the After Dark.
I'm of the opinion that I've actually convinced you a little bit that I might be right.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, no,
All right.
It's okay.
So science is pretty bad, right? $2 billion. Although I thought it was originally $6 billion for sciences, or was it $6 billion total?
Well, that's just for the space science stuff. There's also a $1.1 billion proposed
We're
cut
only
to
just
Earth
getting
sciences.
started here.
Yeah, we're just getting started. $1.1 billion proposed cut to Earth sciences. That includes the Landsat Next program and other type of imagery. And they're proposing, looking at other plans of potentially collaborating more with commercial data that's already readily available. $1.1 billion cut to mission support, and that is a way to streamline their workforce across the entire agency. IT support, NASA center operations, facility maintenance, construction, and environmental compliance studies. There's also a $800 million proposed cut to what they call legacy human exploration systems, which is where we get into the Space Launch System and proposing to end for sure now, ending the Space Launch System and Orion after Artemis 3, which
Wait.
I
Did the
would be
White
okay
House?
with.
Wait. I just want for clarity here. Did the White House just call the Space Launch System a legacy human launcher? Is that did they just call
Legacy
it
human
legacy?
exploration systems is where they lumped that in.
I just want to be clear. The White House is throwing shade on the Space Launch System.
I mean, just
All
listen to
right.
this description that they have. The budget phases out the grossly expensive and delayed Space Launch System. SLS alone costs $4 billion per launch and is 140% over budget. The budget funds a
Whoa.
program to replace SLS and Orion flights to the moon with more cost-effective commercial systems that would support more ambitious subsequent lunar missions. The budget also proposes to terminate the Gateway, a small lunar space station in development with international partners, which would have been used to support future SLS and Orion missions.
Okay. So, that
Yeah.
wipes out Artemis.
That kind of does. It kind of does.
Which to me is very interesting because these are the same people who got Artemis started. So
That's true.
It's just the
Artemis
duality
program.
of man. So
Oh my goodness.
What does let's pause here for a moment because I'm like, I can't decide if this is good or bad. If I'm being blunt, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Right? Like, are they wrong? Are they?
Go ahead,
I
Ryan.
have to say this kind of preview from the White House doesn't really fully align with the rumors I've been hearing. I think it's very clear that from a long time ago, SLS was on the chopping block, right? I think, that if you read between the lines from what pretty much everyone has said for a little while now, it was pretty obvious SLS was going to be going. Even Jared Isaacman in his confirmation hearing was like, we'll do it up to Artemis 3, but beyond then, I don't really think that SLS is a cost-effective way to rapidly get people to the moon. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Like, that was pretty obvious after Artemis 3. Rip SLS, right? But also Orion. What's your Orion replacement? You can replace, like, let's just, like, New Glenn, Falcon Heavy, Vulcan. We've got heavy lift launch vehicles right now, which with some human rating, I know that's just with some human rating, like that's a big thing, but that's not as big as developing an entirely brand new lunar capable crewed vehicle, right? Or am I looking at this wrong? Like Orion, it's got heat shield problems. Why, if you can't,
We'll hand wave that away.
Yeah,
Okay,
what do you replace Orion with? What do you replace it with? Like, genuinely, what do you replace Orion with right now? What other vehicle in existence that exists right now has flown to the moon and returned to Earth safely? What other vehicle has done that?
let me. I can think of one. The Apollo Command Service Module.
Yeah, but we're not building any new ones right now. We can't get
That's
that
right.
going.
It's
We can't get that going.
2025.
Hang on, what did the
doggone
White
it.
House call that? Legacy hardware.
Well, quick! Somebody called North American Rockwell. Oh, wait a second.
I would love to
I mean-
convince SpaceX to still do Gray Dragon and just make a lunar-rated Dragon vehicle. Although that would probably be redundant since they're already looking at Starship to do all the landings for the Artemis program. But there are a few others. I mean, Blue Origin has been working behind the scenes for a long time on some sort of crew capsule, and they may have canceled that a long time ago and just never told anyone. But that's kind of been a rumor floating out for a while.
Well,
Shoot,
hang
even
on,
Rocket
Mike. They
Lab
could have
has
also
ambitions.
wait, hang on. They could have also sent it to the moon and not told anyone.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mike, there is a premiere for a YouTube video called "We're on the Moon Already" for this Thursday on Blue Origin's YouTube channel.
You heard it here first, folks.
So I don't know if anybody saw it this morning.
Ryan, if I can answer your question directly, I mean, when did Orion start development? Someone remind me.
2003.
Right. So we're talking about at its best 20-year-old technology, and you are correct, Ryan. Like, we don't have anything else right now, but what if we allowed commercial space? Obviously I'm biased here, but what if we allowed commercial space, Firefly, Rocket Lab, SpaceX, Blue Origin, to develop a next generation lander? Would it still look like and I'm sorry, I said lander, but next generation lunar capable spacecraft? Would it still look like Orion? Maybe not. But why don't we give this up to the commercial industry? I think NASA's power, and maybe this goes back to the discussion of their budget. The power of NASA is to do the things that commercial space can't fiscally make sense, right? Doing the next generation stuff that no one has figured out. We've sent humans to the moon. We know how spacecrafts work. Commercial space is already doing this. Why does NASA need to do it also? What is NASA adding here that commercial space can't already do? Why not let the commercial sector do it better, cheaper, faster? I don't understand why NASA needs to do this and not commercial space.
I agree with your points there. Why does NASA need to do this, not commercial space? However, you also said that the point of NASA is to do the things that commercial space currently can't do. Commercial space currently can't deliver astronauts to the lunar surface. That capability does not exist yet.
No. Let me rephrase my point. It's not that we currently can't do, because commercial space currently can't do things that you got a chicken egg problem with that logic. My thing is, NASA figures out how to do the really hard stuff, how to send humans to the moon. They did that. They figured that out. They've got a data set that they can send to commercial space. Taxpayers have paid for that data set, and now commercial space can take that data and go, this is how NASA did it. Let's do this better, cheaper, faster. They have that data. What they don't have data on is like in-space nuclear propulsion, right? Warp drives, crazy stuff, right? They're really out there stuff. The stuff that no one knows how to do yet because no one's done it yet. Just because NASA has done it and we have the data on how to do it, but no one has done these other things. NASA should be focusing on those crazy next gen, in my opinion, the crazy, and truly just my opinion, not that of anyone else, not that of any of my employers. Like, this is just me talking off the noggin here, right? In a Dayquil induced state phase. But like, why not have NASA do that and focus on those things? Why is NASA building a rocket? That doesn't make any sense. Why is NASA building spacecraft? That doesn't make any sense. And you're saying like, oh well, commercial space doesn't know how to send a spacecraft to the moon. Maybe Dragon can make it to the moon with a little bit of whatever. I don't know.
And I mean,
just double up the heat shield. Just stack a few heat shields on top of each other. When one fails, you go to the next one. When that one fails, you go to the next one. I don't know.
It's heat shields on heat shields on heat shields. Actually, I'm not sure.
It's a 5-layer ablative heat shield dip. So,
isn't Pika X designed to take something like a Martian reentry for Dragon? Like, it's way over designed or something like that? I don't know that to be true. I'm asking.
That's my understanding. And
yeah, so I mean, if it can do a Martian reentry, why can't it do a lunar reentry? Right? It's far less ballistic. So anyhow, that's my point. Like, is this bad? I guess I go back around the room after I got off my whole thing. Is this actually bad? So some of the science stuff I think is bad, because the science stuff goes back towards the whole point I was just making of, like, is it commercially viable? Right? And I don't think a lot of that science stuff is commercially viable. But the stuff that we've already done with you, this feels inverted, actually. Right? They shouldn't be doing the human spaceflight stuff. They should be putting that money into the sciences. All right. Continue.
No,
Jared, did you have a thought? Like,
I was just thinking that, like, NASA, like you said, NASA should be leading the research into things that nobody is willing to do. And really the power of NASA isn't necessarily in the fact that they're willing to do the research that people aren't willing to do, because there's been, companies that have gone out of their way to just do stuff just because like somebody at the company just wants to prove it, with something like that. But the critical key with NASA that I think a lot of people in the chat room were bringing up is that NASA will hand that data out, no strings attached, no paywall attached to it either. You get the data, right? So that's where you get things.
We paid for the
like-
data, right? The
Yeah,
taxpayers
so
have paid for that data. Yeah.
Yes, but a company themselves, outside of taxes, doesn't have to pay for that data itself. So if they do something like NASA did in the late 90s and early aughts, where they studied the concept that people had talked about, but nobody had ever done actually before, until they did a study with Boeing that they paid to do it, about this interesting idea called subcooled propellants. Taking your propellants, making them extra cold so you can actually store more in a tank. Nobody had done that up until NASA decided to come in and work with a company and fund a project to see if they actually could do that. And then that data was handed out to whoever wanted to use it. And I can think of at least one company that has taken on that subcooled propellants and used it pretty darn good. So that's the power of NASA. And if you don't put that forward, if you really restrict it, then you are essentially preventing NASA from doing what its job is supposed to be, which is to move exploration and move humanity forward. And the current budget is not particularly, or the proposed budget that they have right now, for fiscal year 25 to 26, a nice way of putting it is that ain't it. It's just not conducive of allowing it. Just doesn't feel conducive of allowing that to happen in certain areas of that budget.
Okay.
I
I was just going to disagree with you, because it feels like nuking Artemis is exactly what they should be doing.
I certainly don't disagree with saying wrapping up Space Launch System and Orion. That's been a very long time coming. I'm sure on the show, myself and Space Mike have yelled from the mountaintops that Space Launch System has actually been around since the early 90s as the National Launch System. So which I'm sure me and Mike we will continue to yell that. We'll go to the top of Everest and yell that if we have to. But I mean, it's just, I don't want to say it feels too early, because this budget is not what's going to be the actual budget, because this is the proposed budget from the executive branch. It's got to go through Congress. So before we get too hysterical about things, we have to realize that Congress critters are going to come in and they're going to say, hey, now wait a second.
No.
Jared, that
That's
is not
the
how this
money.
works. We get hysterical now. We get hysterical now.
We get hysterical now and call our local Congress people.
No, we just get hysterical, post about it a bunch on Blue Sky and X and everywhere else, and then never call our Congress people. That's how it actually goes.
It's so over.
I mean, that's a very valid point. What we're talking about here, the executive branch does not hold the purse, I think, and
they do to a degree. So the executive branch can, there are methods by which an executive branch can essentially ramrod a budget through, but then it really doesn't make anybody happy at that point in doing it. But also at the same time, I don't really know if that's a care at the moment. But I don't, it's a roll. This has been a roll of the dice the past, 4 months. So, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens here.
John Manderson says this is not a budget; it's a sabotage in plain sight. We all know it. I'm struggling a little bit because like I want to hate some of this stuff, and I certainly don't agree with cutting the sciences. And like you can see the political side of
science.
this cutting.
I think we're all on the same page there.
Yeah,
Science side, it is an apocalyptic and completely what do they call it? Premeditated murder of the science side of NASA. There's
they're
no other
targeting
way
things
to call it than that. And
they're targeting things for climate change.
They literally, and they also want to cancel things too, like the Nancy Grace Roman telescope, which is essentially done. It's launched. It's supposed to launch
on time.
next
It's on
year.
budget. What NASA mission is on time and on budget? It's the only thing within the bloody agency that's on time and on budget, and they want to cancel it.
You're 100% right.
Which I feel actually
that right there is one of the pre-show clips. Make note, Zach.
To me, it's very interesting actually that if you look back at the Trump 1 executive branch and what they were doing with their proposed budgets for NASA, every fiscal year in their NASA proposals as well, they said we want to cancel Nancy Grace Roman. So what is it? Like, what's your beef with
NASA just needs to rename it.
So
NASA needs to rename it. Call it the Bald Eagle American Freedom Telescope.
No.
Right? I'm just saying, rename it to the Bald Eagle American Freedom for Constitution Telescope, and I bet it won't get canceled. That's all they need to do.
Call it, yeah.
No.
the Baron Trump time machine, and it'll get approved.
Oh God. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, in the comments below, what should they rename the telescope to so it won't get canceled?
No, don't do this.
That's a great.
Oh no,
don't do this, Jamie.
Absolutely
Come on,
do
please.
This. Yes, I want to see your comments. This is going to be amazing.
All right. I'll throw out there
the Trump Freedom Telescope.
If we can't name it the Nancy Grace Roman telescope, then let's name it after. We can name it after another woman who was involved in astronomy, who I think has a great name, which was Annie Jump Cannon. So who helped with the Harvard computers and things like that.
The Jump Cannon Telescope.
The Jump Cannon Telescope. That sounds pretty awesome.
Actually, that does sound pretty badass. All right. Can we keep going on some of the budget stuff here? Because like I stalled us on Space Launch System in Orion, and also I did ask like Mike, do you agree? Is this bad or is this good?
I mean,
ignore the science side. The Space Launch System in Orion, like, should we kill it?
For the ones that are still built, I think it's probably a smart idea to still do Artemis 2 and Artemis 3. I'm kind of 50-50 on Artemis 3, but I do think that it's a good idea. I mean, almost 20 years ago, I was a supporter of this whole thing, but it's been so long and has drained so much money. I think that Orion alone, if we combine the Constellation program and everything in between up until now, has been somewhere along the order of 25 billion. And every year there's been some sort of problem with it. The heat shield is just the most recent problem. They had all sorts of problems with the batteries. They had all sorts of problems with the radiation shielding. They had all sorts of problems with the wiring and had to strip it and redo everything on it. There's been nothing but problems from the get-go. And I think that that's been by design by the people building this. I mean, Boeing and Lockheed Martin, Lockheed being the primary contractor for Orion and Boeing being the primary for the Space Launch System, this has definitely been a masterclass on how to do a cost plus program and drag it out as long as possible and maximize your profit for it. And it's really gotten under my skin over the past 10 years now. So I think it's definitely a good idea to cancel those programs. And I think that we could easily replace them in a couple of years by doing a similar type of competition as NASA has done with the commercial cargo program, the commercial crew program, and now the commercial lunar program. And some of those commercial companies are getting experience now through that commercial lunar program. And I don't think that it would be very hard at all, especially if there's some sort of milestone-based competition and all these interested parties who are already thinking about it and already kind of working on some stuff behind the scenes can get serious about it and push forward. And I think that we should try to recycle as much as we can, even with the gateway system. That whole thing was designed in this weird near rectilinear halo orbit so that Orion could reach it, because Space Launch System and Orion couldn't get all the way into a regular lunar orbit. And so we were inconveniencing everybody by putting the gateway in the orbit that they plan to put it in. I still think it's a good idea to have some sort of station in lunar orbit, but just the plan that they had for it just didn't make sense. So even if we don't use the pieces of Gateway to build a lunar space station, let's use it for the replacement for the International Space Station. There's at least one module that's pretty close to being done, a second one that is getting through its structural test article stuff, and more that, and of course, it's all being built by Thales Alenia Space. I think that at least the first one that is almost done, it's got 4 docking ports on it and would make a great core module to put together some of these commercial modules and, not have any sort of gap in the International Space Station and the research that we do there. Um, and they could loop that too in another type of commercial competition and just change the legalese a little bit so that Tails Alenia can be able to compete with that. And that's how it could all tie in together. Shoot, have Tails Alenia open up a US based office and then they don't even have to change the law for it. So I think that we should try to do something like that with the leftover pieces of the Gateway and the leftover pieces, not of SLS and Orion, but stuff that was planned to be done with it in the future. Like some of the Mars rovers and the different habitats that they've been looking at. I think that we should still move forward with those, but then get serious about it. They've already set up a lot of this stuff for the future lunar landers, future lunar habitats in that sort of model of commercial competition for it. Just hasn't gotten any funding for it yet. I think so far over the past like 5 to 7 years, it's only gotten somewhere around 20 to $50 million for that sort of stuff. And the companies involved, like Blue Origin and Dianetics, have actually made some kind of impressive progress for it. They're nowhere near ready for launch, but it wouldn't take them very long at all with the appropriate funding to push forward and get that into a state of readiness. I do think that it's very much a good idea to eliminate programs that are just draining the resources. And what makes me sad about this proposal is it's not shifting those monies to other things. The money is just gone. Little bit of extra for human spaceflight, but when you take out the money that is uh, being taken away from SLS and Orion, and we haven't even gotten to this yet, but there's even talk in that proposal of cutting support for the International Space Station and possibly retiring that early, and no mention of allocating funds towards any of these other programs. So, if we really are serious about trying to beat China to have the first lunar base, we need to be able to push that and move the resources the way that we need to. And maybe it's just going to be a tough year. Maybe we just need this kind of rough year to slim down, trim the fat a little bit, get rid of some of the unnecessary stuff and things that were slogging things down, and get to the point where we can push forward on those types of programs. And I'm 100% behind you, Jamie, on the idea of that NASA should be doing the science that companies aren't interested in doing because there's not a science, and working on the exotic technology that is really going to open up the cosmos for everyone.
So, but one of the things you mentioned was keeping Artemis 2 and Artemis 3 because they're already built, but is that not a false? I mean, they need their new launch tower, which is $1 billion plus. They need it's $4 billion
Not
to
for
launch
Artemis
this thing
2 and
every
Artemis
time.
3. The new mobile launcher is for Artemis 4 and beyond, which is for SLS Block 1B. So that's where the White
Okay.
House wants to cancel it between. They want Artemis 3 to be the last SLS, which will be Block 1, using Mobile Launcher 1, Mobile Launcher 2, which is already nearly fully built and is currently still under construction at the Kennedy Space Center, SLS Block 1B, Orion, beyond, Artemis 4 and beyond, that would be scrapped.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so sorry, Mobile Launcher 2 is for Artemis 3?
4.
4.
4
and beyond.
All right.
So 2
All right,
and
so-
3
and
have
they've already-
the current upper stage. The ones beyond that would have the bigger upper stage that requires the larger.
And they've already
Mobile Launch
repaired Mobile
Platform.
Launcher 1 from the first Artemis launch? Like it's back into a launch configuration, and then have they fixed it to the point where they're not going to have to throw a bunch of money at it and repair it every single time?
Hopefully, because they're
A
stacking
serious
on
question.
it right now.
Because,
Yeah, no.
because we're
They're
Yeah.
stacking on it right now.
Right. Because we're talking about this like, oh well, we've already built it, and so the really expensive stuff is done. And I'm not sure that's a true statement. I'm really not. I like these they found the way to spend the most amount of money to launch. I don't even know how to launch a rocket for $4 billion. Right? Like, oh my God. Like how is that possible?
I can.
So
I know how to launch one.
how do you do that, Jared?
Give me $4 billion, and then I will take like $30 of that and go buy like an Estes rocket kit and launch it for you, and just pocket
Thanks,
the
Jared.
rest of that. You're welcome. So
Ryan, how
that's
about
right.
you?
Here for it.
Do you think we should be canceling SLS and Orion? Do you think this is a good idea?
I think that it makes sense for the SLS side of things, where the White House wants to cut it, in my opinion. Artemis 3 will get to that goal of putting Americans back on the moon, which is the entire point of the Artemis program, right? Or at least the beginnings of the Artemis program before we move on to a permanent presence on the moon, permanent presence around the moon, and then moving on to Mars. However, the thing that concerns me is the White House also wants to pull Orion, and I'm getting very much the nerves of when the shuttle was cancelled before the US had a replacement to send their own astronauts to the International Space Station, and we had to rely on Soyuz for what, 6, 7, 8, nearly a decade, right? We had to rely on Russian rocket technology for nearly a decade.
Yep.
That concerns me because once we get people back to the moon on Artemis 3, if there isn't an Orion replacement ready, are we going to abandon the moon again and be stuck in low Earth orbit for another 50 years? Are we not going to be back on the moon until 2080? Like, are we going to make the same mistake again? Are we going to completely forget about the moon again because we don't have an Orion replacement ready in time? That's my concern.
Wait a minute, Ryan. It could be so much worse than that, right? Because like after Apollo, we got stuck in low Earth orbit. There's a chance that we will be stuck in no orbit, right? We could deorbit the space. We could be stuck on the ground. That could be a real future here where we have no capabilities, right?
Yeah. And even Mike's
Crazy.
comments earlier about the initial gateway module, using that for maybe some sort of ISS replacement. We've already done that before. The ISS is built of Mir 2 and Freedom Space Station components, right? That's what the International Space Station is currently built of. We've done this all before. History is repeating itself 50 years later, 20 years
It's all
later.
just a little bit of history repeating.
Exactly. Are we seriously going to make the same mistake again? Like, why?
Yes.
Why? Why?
It's the
That's my response.
I mean,
why?
Yes.
If you don't learn from your past, you're doomed to repeat it. That's why. Jared, how about you? Should we cancel SLS and Orion?
What an easy question to answer. For Space Launch System, yes, I think after Artemis 3 doesn't make much sense. I'm going to say something not nice here, and I know my astronomy friends are. I'm going to take a hit or two from my friends in the astronomy world from this, but
hang on,
mobile
Let me
launcher.
just. There we go.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for this. But the Mobile Launcher 2 is the James Webb Space Telescope of the aerospace ground support equipment world. So, but hold on. Put me back up. Put me back up. Put me back up. I'm not done yet. But without the results of the James Webb Space Telescope. Thank you so much. That's my point there.
Thank you for joining our TED Talk.
At that, yeah. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, everybody. Get out. So, I'm sorry. Where's my manners? Please get out. Orion, I'm with Ryan in the fact that there just does not appear to be a replacement. I think Ryan brings up a great point about Orion, which is that I don't know why those wires got crossed, but they did.
I'm not sure I agree with his point on Orion, but do continue.
So Ryan's Orion point, with the loss of capability of being able to return a crew to the moon, I feel is a very real possibility. The what has been stated about Starship human landing system and the speed of Blue Origin, which is about the same as cash registers at Kmart, if you can remember that back in the day. Um, it's I'm nervous about that. I share that nervousness that Ryan has about that. So I'm not
But
fully on board.
blue's not the
Uh,
only option. Blue is not the
Blue
only
is not
option.
the only option. SpaceX is there as well.
Don't
There's
forget
at
Rocket
this
Lab.
point at this
Firefly, Rocket Lab.
Firefly.
Like there are a bunch of hungry, but these companies are hungry, and if they see a market there, they're going to run after it.
That would be awesome. I would love to see something. I would love to see like a I don't what would I call it? It's not a bank run, but like a vehicle run on trying to get
competition.
people to the moon. That would be pretty great. I would love something
you
like that.
wanna know-
Let's do a lunar commercial crew thing. Like let's get a lunar
100%.
CC dev going. How awesome would it be? Because I mean, we already had like a lunar COTS, right? We kind of did that with the commercial landers that are happening right now. It's all the cool kids are crashing their stuff into the moon and litho breaking. So we should. It's complicated. I wish there was an easy answer. To me, SLS is a very easy answer because SLS is just outrageously expensive. It's outrageously in the past, and it is. I feel bad about Space Launch System because it's a product of its time. It's a dinosaur because that's what the dinosaurs were like in the early '90s, right? The idea of commercial spaceflight in the early 90s was a punchline. It wasn't a reality. I would even say up until the late early 2010s, mid 2010s, that's really when commercial spaceflight finally stopped being a punchline and actually became like, yeah, you can do this. So yeah, goodbye Space Launch System, maybe goodbye Orion, but I don't want to see you go. But also you kind of got to be better. Like, I don't know. Orion's tricky to me because of that. However, standing on my soapbox here to add some hysterics to things, the budget cuts to NASA science and other areas are nothing but first degree murder. So and there's no other way to put it. I'm no longer going to call it apocalyptic. I'm just going to call it what it is, which is premeditated murder, first degree murder. And there are several NASA centers that will probably be shut down if those kinds of cuts go forward. You'll also lose things like NASA's education division as well. And I don't know about you, but NASA does a pretty good job of inspiring the young kids to want to become involved in space flight. And then that isn't just like these kids then go work for NASA once they graduate college. They kind of go out and they help build out the industry once they get out of that, right? Like they go to SpaceX, they go to Blue Origin, they go to Aerojet, whatever they're called this week. They go to Sierra Nevada Corp. They go to Boeing. They go to Lockheed.
L3 Aerojet.
I mean, it's you can't destroy your foundation and then say, "Where'd my house go?" in the future. So it's
And
very.
yet you can.
And boy, you sure can. Let me tell you, boy, have I done some dumb stuff in my own life. But at the same time, I didn't have that many zeros behind it. Yeah, it's just yikes. It's
on the education
not
thing.
great.
If I could just jump in, I have really liked over the years that they've had all that stuff to inspire kids, but it stops at elementary. I wish it kept going and that there was stuff like that for people in high school and even for early college type of things. So because it just stops out after elementary and there's not that thing to keep that fire burning and keep that inspiration going, so that as kids who are inspired by the stuff that are going through school kind of stay on the path that they need to for whatever chosen field if they do want to work in the space industry. And I've always been disappointed by that.
So as someone who does work in education and attempting to get the future bright and secure with the hope that we get people off of this planet into the stars, I can assure you that it doesn't stop at elementary. It just changes the methodology by which it does, and then it becomes a bit more grant based, where you go to NASA with your proposal, and then NASA has a bunch of grants that you can essentially go in for with things like that. So I assure you, Mike, it appears to look like it stops at elementary school, but it does continue. It does taper off at college, but at that point, you'll often find a lot of actual commercial companies simply stepping in and doing things. Like I know at Cal Poly Pomona here in the Los Angeles area, they have a liquid propulsion laboratory, and they actually do stuff with Aerojet, and same with the at USC as well. They have a rocket laboratory as well, and I know that they've done some collaboration work with SpaceX and things. So it just kind of
I guess the
Yeah.
word just isn't put out there enough, because I didn't
Yes,
know that
it
those
is.
types
It
of
definitely
programs,
isn't.
those types of grants even existed until long after my opportunity to take advantage of them was over.
Yeah, NASA's education and the STEM education division is like one of those like hidden gems that nobody ever talks about, but is like incredibly well ran in my sort of anecdotal reference in my one-on-one work that I've done with NASA STEM education. So to see that dry up would just crush me on the inside, and also would crush some of the work that I do as well.
And since
So
we're on that subject, I don't know how much the annual budget is for it right now, but that whole thing is getting a cut of $143 million, or at least a proposed cut by the White House. So,
for NASA, their education division.
yep.
Yeah, and that's the entire education division. So
Okay, that'd be the whole
So,
thing then.
Speaking of, so we got stuck on SLS and Orion. That was my fault. Should we continue?
No.
I don't want to. Like, can we just barrel through the rest of it? Because I don't think
Sure.
like what.
Well, to kind
So
of
it sounds
barrel
like
through,
all NASA education's gone. Right. That's the
Yes.
next proposal. Right. Okay. Cool. So why educate our youth? Okay. Great.
the other two, kind of the last two big items, actually three items, is they have a proposed cut of $531 million for space technology. That would include eliminating failing space propulsion projects. I'm not sure which ones they're referring to, but that might kill NASA Marshall and get rid of our idea of pursuing exotic stuff. A cut of $500 million to the International Space Station program in general, which means transitioning right now from just doing a lot less science and a little bit more maintenance and preparing for the eventual decommission, whether that happens early in 2028 or sticking with the current plan of decommissioning in 2030. And then I think this is pretty close to the entire budget for this division, but a cut of $346 million for the aeronautics program. All those studies of having quiet sonic booms and the next generation of commercial airliners. Green aviation, that's all gone. At least
Yeah, that would be
the first A
that
in
would-
NASA.
that
Yeah.
would be about a 35% cut to that division. So which
Yeah.
would be a lot. So yeah. Again,
I also
this
Go ahead,
I don't
Ryan.
know if it's been explicitly stated yet. I can't remember, to be totally honest. But you know, this also cancels Gateway. Gateway into thin
Entirely
air,
canceled.
just gone. And I have to
I-
say, as an international partner, judging on the comments from the White House of their first 100 and so days in office, I'm not entirely shocked. They hate their international partners. Like Canada, screw you. ESA, screw you. JAXA, screw you. The United Arab Emirates, screw you. We're not going to do Gateway anymore. So not only is this the money that NASA has invested in this program, this is the money that Canada, the European Space Agency, the United Arab Emirates, the Japanese, that they've invested, that's now useless because they put their trust in NASA. and now NASA
Yeah.
isn't going to be doing Gateway anymore.
And
So-
you know, it's one thing that we were talking about was the concept of soft power, this ability to have influence in the world without overbearing, the usual overbearing way that things end up going down in that way. And that was really one of the great things of international collaboration at NASA, was the ability to have that soft power and to be able to do that. And that kind of removes that. So
Is there a chance that ESA, JAXA, the UAE, and the rest of the Artemis Accord partners who have been contributing some money? I know that there's a little bit from a handful of countries, but is there a chance that they can step up to save that program or repurpose it for another purpose? Since, again, most of it is being built by Thales Alenia, a European company. So is there a chance that they could move on with Gateway without NASA, or is everyone just going to give up on it?
Well,
None.
the point of Gateway, one of the points of Gateway is to serve as a communications relay for that South Lunar base. The other point of Gateway is to serve as the stopover point for the human landing system. If NASA can now go from Orion dock directly to the human landing system, they don't need Gateway. What is Gateway's purpose? Why do you need a space station in lunar orbit if you're not going to use it to communicate with the moon and you're not going to use it to land on the moon? You might as well have it in low Earth orbit. And then all of the NASA things like the power and propulsion element, if you don't have that, how are you meant to power your space station? Like, they now need to fund, like ESA, JAXA, Canada, and the UAE would now need to fund their own more modules in order to supplement the modules NASA will no longer be providing. And at that point, like, where does it end at that point?
I know someone who will be more than happy, possibly happy, to step in and do this because of past collaboration that has already occurred between the European Space Agency and several of these countries. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this country before, but it sure is mentioned quite a bit in this report. And that country's name is China. So, and as wild as it sounds, China and the European Space Agency already have a relationship with each other, to the point that they are about to do a joint scientific lunar mission next year. So, and they're actually training European Space Agency astronauts and China Space Agency astronauts together as well. So when one superpower leaves, could another superpower possibly fill that vacuum?
Welcome to the Tiangong Gateway.
So
Good point. Good point. So yeah, that's where we're at. But obviously, there's still going to be a lot of pushback from Congress, and
yes.
people that are getting NASA money are certainly going to fight for their particular districts, even if they don't care one way or the other what happens with anything with NASA. They're still going to fight for that for their districts. So this isn't set in stone yet, but it's certainly going to be a debate, and negotiations are going to be ongoing for quite a while. The deadline, which they always miss, is October to come up with the fiscal budget for 2026. That'll most certainly be delayed. My prediction is we won't actually get a budget until like March of 2026. But who knows? Maybe they'll get things somewhat done on time this year.
Yeah,
we can always hope. So.
And to kind of add on to that too, Jared Isaacman, who is nominated for NASA Administrator, has been put forward to be voted on in the Senate, and we'll see how that goes as well. So
He passed the House, right? It's just up to the Senate now.
It's the committee.
Yeah, just the committee.
He passed the first section, and now it's up to the next section, and then he's done, right? Yeah.
The science, commerce, science, and transportation, or something like that committee, is like 20 odd senators who that's who the hearing was in front of. They then vote on if they like Jared. All of the Republicans and some of the Democrats liked him. Most of the Democrats didn't, for other reasons. Jared has now gone up into the full Senate vote. So now all the senators will be able to vote on whether they want Jared to become NASA administrator. And then assuming that passes, he'll then bump up another level into NASA and then get sworn in, ceremonial, all of that, and then, I don't know, gets a new office, something like that.
Gets a new office. All
a
right.
very complicated series of decisions that will need to be made on his part with a lot of the company things that he does. So, and a lot of very watchful eyes and legal departments after that, after as well, I'm sure, like it or not. So,
Like Firefly tried flying a rocket without a nozzle.
yeah,
Poor
turns
Firefly.
out, turns out.
I mean,
So,
I think they installed it at least, but something fell off.
I don't. Did
yeah.
they? Like, I don't remember even seeing it. Did you guys
Oh,
see it?
there's you
It's
could.
in the thumbnail. It's in the thumbnail.
Yeah, it is. You can see it falling away. It
Oh,
was like
really?
you can like it was like deuces, as it's heading back. So, but yeah, it didn't stay there. So, and I don't have they announced an official reason for that yet? Um, it's probably too early, I would imagine, for it. But it was unbelievable. The fact that at separation, they had startup of their second stage engine. The nozzle decided to vacate the vehicle. It did like a tuck and roll as it came off, and then it just continued on. And I mean, hats off to the guidance, navigation, and control team at Firefly on their rocket. Like, dang, that thing kept going. Like, it recovered from that, and then it just kept going as best it could. So,
The initial part of the
yeah.
launch seemed to go okay. And of course, launching from Vandenberg, they had to have Vanden fog, so you didn't get to see a whole lot until it got through the clouds. But I'm starting to think now that if you don't have fog at Vandenberg, that's a sign of bad luck. So I think it's okay. But yeah, I'm gonna let me get forward a little bit here, where we can actually start to see where the separation happened. We only got a handful of shots before the camera angle changed. And big props to NASA Spaceflight for collaborating with Firefly Aerospace to bring us the live stream of their particular launch. But see that? Do you guys see that right there? Let me go back just a couple seconds. You can see during the stage separation in Miko that, I mean, for the first couple of seconds, I thought that they had lost the whole rocket. But yeah, that was not a ideal, definitely not a nominal main engine cutoff and stage separation. And there you go. You can see some of the pieces falling away, and the upper stage doing this bit of a tumble. And yet, also kind of pretty impressive that despite that, whatever happened there, kind of bad hot staging, whatever you want to call it, even though they don't do hot staging, um, that they were able to recover, and it still was able to fly straight, although unfortunately, because of these problems, it didn't reach its intended orbit, and basically the whole mission was a loss. But pretty impressive in my mind that they were able to have that happen to them, and just be able to recover from that wild oscillation there and keep going for as long as they could anyway. I do also want to switch real quick to this to give you a little bit of a comparison of what it's supposed to look like on previous flights versus what it looked like on this flight. So,
Oh,
yeah,
look, there's a whole
obviously
nozzle
something
there.
missing. Yeah.
One of these things is not like the others. One of these things actually should belong.
Yeah.
Man, I
So,
wonder.
yeah.
Ooh, I wonder what
Um,
that.
Oops.
I wonder what that stage sep footage would have looked like.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
I want to see it.
I'm
but
sure they've.
That ain't coming
I'm pretty
out.
sure. Probably not. They likely have something, assuming they were able to maintain solid lock, because it looks like it jostled the vehicle, which could have caused the antennas to kind of move, which can cause a break in the space to ground. So I don't know that they have video, but I'm curious to know if they do and what that looks like.
if so, that's
Yeah.
an FAA exclusive right now.
Yeah. And Joshua Collins in the chat room is bringing up a great point, which is something that I was going to mention, which is that on a previous flight, they came so close, like an inch or two away from the bell of that second stage nozzle striking the inner stage during separation. So if it is accidental contact or recontact or something, this would not, I don't want to necessarily say this would not be the first time this has happened, but definitely
Sunrise. It's a surprise aerospike modification. See, we should be happy about this.
This is why you run aerospike engines, right? You don't have to worry about your nozzle falling off.
Yeah. This also
saying.
makes me chuckle, GTH. It's just a safety cover. Leave it off. Oh, man. Poor Firefly. But yeah, FAA has ordered an investigation. They are grounded from any other flights until they figure out what exactly failed and can...
Oh, I know it failed. The
forward.
nozzle on the second stage.
Oh.
There you go.
I had
You're
no
welcome.
idea.
You don't say.
You're welcome.
Oh, man.
What I want to know is what was happening behind the scenes at NASA spaceflight when like all of that went down. Like, did they immediately know like this isn't good? Because the rocket was still going, right? Like, what's that backroom comm look like? Of like, hey guys, I feel like the nozzle should be there. Is this the new nozzle-less version?
I will just say, if you listen to the commentary on the stream, it continued as normal.
Well, hang on. What happens on the air and what's happening in the control room are often two very different things, Ryan.
Oh yes.
That's,
All right.
That's an interesting observation you may have had from your own line of work.
All right. So
No
at
comment.
least we talked about the thing that we made a thumbnail on the show for. I'm happy about that. I'm sure Firefly will bounce back. They'll figure it out. A couple extra bolts. We'll call it a day.
Well, speaking of, since we're labeling this segment Rocket Talk and updates, we finally
Rocket talk.
It's Rocket Talk.
Talk about
Oh my
talk about
gosh.
your rockets.
Here we go again. We're going to talk
Here we
about
go.
the rockets.
Rocket talk. Do
We
need to
finally
have
got a
regular
Kuiper
rocket
launch.
talk?
We finally got a
we got-
Kuiper launch,
We
and
got one of the launches with Jeffy Boy's satellites on them, the Kuipers.
Jeffy.
yep,
The
Trying to-
Kuipers.
The Kuipers.
I was so verklempt when I saw it launch.
I mean, speaking of seeing it launch, we saw it launch,
He's
and then
having none of this.
yeah, I'm moving straight on. I don't care. We saw it launch, and then ULA ended the stream at booster engine cutoff, so we didn't actually get to see the second stage or the satellites. But a few days later, on the Friday lunchtime-ish, Project Kuiper on X tweeted the separation video of all 27 satellites leaving the Centaur 3 upper stage. So we have finally seen the satellites, just not live, which is very confusing because that kind of secrecy is reserved for like National Reconnaissance Office missions. We'll only see the booster, we won't see the second stage. Why Jeff Bezos thinks his satellites are more important than NRO satellites, I don't know, but yeah, each to their own, I guess. I'm just very happy that finally Starlink might have a competitor in about 3 years' time.
I will say, hang on, it might not be that. Often these satellites go, and I can't speak to Kuiper, but I can say that many times, you all keep doing it that way. Like there's a whole mic screen share section. If you just do that, you can go do full screen. I don't know why you keep putting it in the scene. Anyhow,
there we go. Here's the official video of the payload deploy.
There's a possibility that these were deployed in a place where there's no ground station coverage, where you cannot get live video of the deploy, and you have to wait for store and forward video to come back to the ground so you can actually then release it on demand after the fact. And so it would really be weird to like keep this webcast going to show nothing, right? Because if you're deploying over LOS, you have nothing to show. So I'm not saying that that's they didn't pay for Prime coverage, coverage Prime. I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying that like that is a possibility, right? Like,
Yeah, I agree that it's a possibility. However, I feel like they could have at least kept going till Seco, right?
Yeah,
Like,
they totally
what?
could have gone till at least like they're in a coast phase. Absolutely.
Yeah, not like, okay, booster's done. See you next time.
Thanks for joining. Bye.
Peace. You can't know what orbit these are in, but why? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
I can
question
give another.
is, so there was a deadline for them to get Kuiper satellites into orbit for them to maintain their frequencies, right? The FCC, you can't just say, "Oh, I want this frequency," and then do nothing with it, right? Like
Yeah.
the FCC has requirements that you meet certain timelines in order to keep your frequencies. Did they meet their timeline for Kuiper to get it into orbit for them? I thought their timeline had expired, but maybe I'm mistaken.
So their timeline is coming up. It hasn't expired yet, but their timeline, to the best of my knowledge, is that by July 2026, so in about 14 months' time, they need to have, I think it's half of their over 3,000 satellites in space. So that's about 1,500 satellites to be launched over the next 14 months. And so far, they've launched 27. And to do this, they have Atlas 5s, Vulcans, Ariane 6s. So either they're not going to meet that deadline, or we're about to see a pretty impressive ramp up in cadence from United Launch Alliance.
And everyone else that they've contracted with.
Yeah.
They only need 54.5 remaining launches if they just do that many launches, or that many deployments each time. So 54 launches, one per week, they're good.
Yeah, that's only 5 weeks for SpaceX.
Yeah. But
And-
yeah. But I'll also I know not every launch is on an Atlas 5, but I'll just also put this out that Atlas 5 in its entire history of existing as a rocket has only launched like 102 times. So that's like half of Atlas 5's launches ever in like 14 months.
And we've only got a handful left. What is there, like
Oh,
12,
no, it's fine.
13
They've got
left?
an unlimited supply of engines. It's fine.
Oh, okay. I forgot.
Yeah.
The corruption runs
Sarcasm.
deep.
Sarcasm. Yeah, so we're thinking, so then what happens? Right? Like,
Maybe they go to the FCC and be like, "Hello, FCC. Now we're
Please,
friends.
sir. May I have more frequency?
Maybe they'll do exactly that." Or
They could
like,
pitch it the right way.
Yeah. Do they then
pitch it
have
the
to
right
share
way.
it? Do they then have to share the frequencies? I don't know. One thing that could be interesting, actually, is there were also rumors that the White House wants to kill TDRS and replace it with Starlink and Kuiper. So maybe that will give some favorable things to Kuiper, such as making an extension, allowing them to keep their frequency reservation. I don't know. That's pure rumor and nonsense out of my brain right now. But maybe that'll become a thing. But yeah, as it stands, they need an increase in cadence, or they might be stuffed.
Yeah. I think, though, that they could have a chance, though, to get an extension, just showing that, hey, we're trying, we've launched this many, here's what we're getting, please give us more time, since, they're not. It's kind of the same situation with the whole OneWeb Eutelsat thing. It's,
OneWeb.
OneWeb.
I
That's
hope
such
that Kuiper will be able to
whatever
deal
that
with
other
leap
one
years.
is that all the finance bros love, who aren't building anything to my knowledge.
Would you say, Ryan, Kuiper is what?
I hope that Kuiper, unlike OneWeb, will be able to deal with leap years.
I hadn't heard that was an issue. OneWeb went down with leap years? What happened?
Yeah, so because 2024 was a leap year, it had an extra day. So when it got to December 31st, OneWeb was like, hang on, it's meant to be 2025. Clunk! And the entire constellation went out. And it took them a little while to get the constellation back online.
Oh, that's hilarious. I had no idea.
Yeah.
All 7 of their customers must have been pissed.
And 3 of them were Saudi
Sorry.
princes. They were very angry.
Sorry, I should be nice.
But yeah,
Or
Jared,
should I?
do you know how many Atlas 5s we have left?
Oh my gosh! I
Hey.
believe it's a double-digit number.
That many? I
Um,
thought
I'm
it was
gonna-
only
I'm
like
gonna
12 or
double check.
13. Because I thought there was like 9 for Kuiper and then 6 that they had set aside for Starliner, which also probably isn't going to be happening. But that's all that I thought there was.
There's nothing
But I
wrong with
could-
Starliners.
Some more Kuiper
Starliner's fine.
launchers.
Launchers. What's wrong with Starliner? Starliner's fine. I was gonna make a joke when you're talking about Orion and all the issues it have. It's gonna be like, no, Space Mike, you're thinking of Starliner.
My bad. My bad.
Okay.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 more Atlas V Kuiper launches between 25 and 26. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 remaining Starliner launches. And there's one for Viasat in Q3 2025 apparently. So
Wow, that's like 14.
13,
Yeah.
14.
And also
I mean,
important to remember
14.
important to remember with Project Kuiper and their build out of their constellation, they're not flying just on Atlases. They're also going to fly on New Glenn. They're going to fly on Vulcan. They're going to fly on Falcon 9. They're going to fly on Orion 6. So it's not like they just said, hey, we Atlas 5 until we die, ride or die Atlas 5. They picked everything that they could, basically.
They had to. They need like 50 something launches to get to their half of their constellation, right? They need 100 launches to get to the whole constellation, and that is assuming all of the fairings can hold just as many Kuiper satellites as the Atlas V could, which is not a safe assumption, right? They may have a different stacking mechanism for each individual vehicle.
Yeah, I was about to say Falcon 9, I believe, is not going to quite be able to carry as much, simply because it's not going to be expended like the Atlas V in its hot rod configuration is. I think the Orion 6, because it's got a little bit bigger of a payload fairing, it can handle some. I think New Glenn is the one with the biggest, and it's expected to handle like something in the excess of 50 Kuiper satellites per launch. So like a crazy number per launch. So
that doesn't make sense because it has a thrust to weight ratio of 1.000000001 to 1.
They could watch maybe one Kuiper right now.
Yeah, I know. A bar of chocolate.
We weren't overweight.
have a couple of SRBs on the side. It'll be fine.
yeah, it's fine. It's good.
All right, are we done? Are we finishing up? I feel like we're done.
Well, aside from that, I think that we should, before we leave, we got to at least talk about well, you brought it up earlier, but the vote is official, and I actually want to show a quick video that Ryan made and posted to your Twitter account to show the new border and city limits of Starbase, Texas. The people voted, and they voted in favor, and
I am the people
getting Starbase, Texas. It's official.
Is that
I'm excited for this.
Are those city limits or like a really interesting Formula One track? I can't tell.
Yes.
So the way, to my knowledge, that these have come about is essentially like all of the housing plots plus the road, and they've just drawn a line around it. That's all this is. So it's not to my knowledge, this is not Elon who's tried to gerrymander some sort of district so it will vote in the same way that he wants it to vote for. Like, this is literally just all the housing development plus Highway 4. Let's draw a line around it, and it's created this really unique shape.
Yeah, and the beach I notice as well, or at least the first part there. So, but doing that, I mean, does that give SpaceX the ability to then have a lot more control over the road closures and moving things around between the test sites and the launch pad a lot easier? I would assume so. But now that means that there's also a lot of other requirements that they're going to have to do. They're going to have to meet a handful of, just regular rules of being able to maintain a town. They're going to have to open at least 1 or 2 administrative offices. They're going to need to have public bathrooms. just a handful of services. But then again, that might provide a whole other opportunity for people. I would love to volunteer for the Starbase Texas firefighter department or something along those lines. So
when the next static fire goes wrong, Mike's running in with a fire engine and a hose going off to to set out the fire at
I was just gonna
Massey's.
say we're gonna keep the firefighters like constantly employed here, right? Like, is it not?
Yeah. No. Well, no one lives at Massey's, so they don't need to put
That's a
Massey's
good point.
in the city.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's
No
all
one-
about the housing, right? Yeah.
no one to vote for it.
Does this
Yeah.
mean that they're gonna be in charge of the roads, so that like the roads are gonna be possibly exceptionally nicer than roads in Texas usually are?
I was gonna say hard to be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully, the best case scenario for this, in my opinion, is like the general amenities is improved, quality of life is better. There's things for like there's a shop, there's public toilets that anyone has access to. The worst side of this, in my opinion, is like there's the SpaceX shop and the SpaceX toilets where only SpaceX employees are allowed. There's huge tax hikes on property that isn't owned by SpaceX. That sort of stuff would be suboptimal in my opinion, and I hope it doesn't go that way. But on the other side of things, this area is growing really, really fast, and this authority gives SpaceX the opportunity to do things that they couldn't do before. So there's pros and cons. I'm hoping it's more on the pro side for the general public than closing things off more.
No.
Well, remember, Sack's not in the scene, so no one can hear Sack but us.
Oh.
All right.
Well,
all right. Now we're
whenever
done.
whenever they get a Sonics, I'm there.
Well, to kind of wrap
we have
up
another
this
poll.
rocket talk, I would be remiss. SpaceX is making progress on the testing for the next Starship launch. No one knows for sure what recently happened at the static fire of Ship 35. It looks to me, this is just me off the top of my head, looks to me like they might have been able to recreate some of the failure modes that have happened on the last two flights. I hope that is the case, so that they can figure out a little bit better of what fixes they might need to make. But things are moving right along, and there's even been a couple of flight updates, so we will hopefully be seeing the next flight of Starship very soon, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, couple of months. So all good news, I think, and it's hard to keep up with the pace of progress that that's happening at Starbase Texas. So petition now to change the name to Gulf of Starbase. That's what I would love. Was there anything else that anyone wanted to bring up for Rocket Talk before we go to our last poll and move on?
I'd say we've hit everything. We've kind of gone through every single news item there has been for the last 3 weeks. So
Just about, yeah.
All right. I think that's it for the show. I want to thank everyone so much for watching.
I guess
Okay,
we
I
have
don't
to
want to
keep
thank you for
going.
the show. Yeah, I guess we're going. Something. People who make the show go. These are all of the citizens of tomorrow. Thank you, citizens of tomorrow, who making the show go. And this week we have, I think it's Matto Titan and the astronomers! Exclamation point rocket! Thank you for resubscribing or joining. And Joni Mahoney also coming back to suborbital. And then we also have our orbital members and our escape velocity members. And remember, and there's a level for everyone, right? And so whatever you think works. And remember, we're about to go into After Dark. And before we do, a huge shout out to the two people who contributed this show. So we've got, let's see here. We got three. We have Chris, actually, who... we took that off. There we go. Chris, who contributed a super chat. And I think that was in the pre-show when we were look at that clear plume.
Oh
talking
no!
About Firefly.
Daz,
Zach,
look.
SAC contributed 5 memberships to the show. So all 5 people who got memberships from SAC, thank you so much, SAC, for contributing. You will be able to join our After Dark show. And then just a moment ago, Dave Avery also contributed 5 memberships to the show. So everyone who just got membership there, so 10 new people got memberships for, I think, the next month or so. So remember, join us in After Dark. Up next, there, boom, look at that. Look at the new graphic. Look, I made it say After Dark instead of member show.
Ooh,
Wow. Ooh.
pretty. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and we will see you there very soon. Thanks for joining us today.